When it comes to first-person shooters, people oftentimes make videos on the best settings and sensitivity to use when it comes to competitive games, but I don't really see too many people talking about the best settings that you need to be using to setting yourself up for a win, and that's game sense. Game sense? Game sense helps you attain massive improvement via being familiar with the game that you play and the possibilities within it. And it can be a pretty broad topic and kind of difficult to understand sometimes. A lot of people interpret game sense in different ways, and in the end, it's really all relative to how people see things. With that being said, today we're going to talk about game sense and how no matter what type of game you're playing, hell, this doesn't even really apply just to video games. Getting a sense of what's going on in the system that you're participating in is always going to afford you a lot more of a better outcome than just being blind to the things going on around you. Now, in a general sense, you can think of game sense as increasing awareness of what's going on around you. Basically, information. Taking in information, being able to analyze said information and figure out the best route to go based on what's going on. Things like that. Increasing your game sense lends itself to increasing your foresight of the potential ways a situation can unfold. And like I say a lot, when you're able to more easily predict the way people may move in certain outcomes, or at least have somewhat of an idea of the way things will probably go, or how they can go at the very least, you'll have a lot better chance of having a positive outcome to the situation than just going in blind and reacting to what happens at the end. So now that we know what game sense is, how do we actually train our game sense and refine it? Well, one of the best and probably people's least favorite ways to do this is taking accountability, even when you didn't really do anything wrong in the situation. At the end of the day, it's one of the best ways to consistently affect change and improvement in your game. Now, you might be thinking, okay, I know what I did wrong, but how does that help me not do it again? This is one of those situations where it's all in the mind. Now, basically what I mean is each mistake is analyzed and broken down in order to create frames of reference and mental mappings on how to approach similar situations. So now that you know what leads to a failed result, you can X that out of your mind and end up trying something else that may lead to more success. Pretty much any game has characters with some type of ability or tool or utility, something. In competitive games, the characters have to have characteristics that allow them to compete against each other, but still have uniqueness in their design, which is why they have to be balanced for competitive play. So taking into account things like what abilities a character may have, the tools at their arsenal, things like grenades or accessories or other in-game items, terrain and level design, and the ways enemies can take certain positioning. Basically, you have to understand the mechanics of the game and how they can be used for you as well as against you. Now, to reiterate, you gain the most effective outcomes in situations when you have a complete understanding of the mechanics of the system that you are participating in. Now, when it comes to video games, this basically boils down to knowing how to exploit the game to your advantage. And no, I'm not talking about cheating or any of that type of weird shit. Why do y'all cheat in games? But anyway, to use an example, Apex Legends. There are, for some reason, people that try to say that certain movement mechanics are exploits and not intended to be in the game or not supposed to be in the game. And I'm not talking about configs and all of the other crazy shit. I'm not getting into that debate. I'm talking about regular movement mechanics that a regular person can learn how to do, and people feel like it's an exploit. That's kind of the manner that I mean when I say exploit the game to your advantage. You got to use little tricks and tools and strategies and everything the game affords you that's within the moral and ethical limit. Don't cheat. That's basically what I'm trying to say. Understand how you can use the game to its fullest potential for your advantage. Because if you want to improve at a video game or anything really, understanding is the key to you getting anywhere. You go to a trip to a random country with a language that you've never spoken or probably even heard before. Are you going to understand anything? No. You got to get an understanding of the system around you. Learn the language, learn the locale, learn the people, things like that. This is another way you can think of game sense. You're putting yourself into unfamiliar situations where you don't have experience and gaining experience so that for those future situations, you have the knowledge needed to be able to make better decisions. So you got to focus on learning how to play the game better instead of blaming the game for things going bad or not having gone in your favor. And I know this might be kind of ironic coming from me. Up top. Like, why would you, bro, what the fuck is wrong? Exactly why I didn't want to do this fight in the first place. What the fuck? Bro, oh my god. Oh my god. Oh. We got fucked up. You are fucking terrible. Bro, like, what the fuck? Because You know, I talk shit about bad matchmaking all the time. But if you're gonna choose to play in the system that a game provides, you gotta be ready and able to combat all the factors of it that may put you at a disadvantage and find a way to switch it to be advantageous to you. Otherwise, you're just gonna constantly end up in bad situations where things don't go your way. And screaming into the void every time things don't go your way doesn't really do much but exhaust you and probably your pet, who's tired of listening to you sound like you're about to throw your TV across the room. Now, if you're a newer player to a game, you may not have the most experience with it in order for you to accurately assess what went wrong and what you could have done differently. And that's not the end of the world. That's pretty normal for being a new player to a game. And if you're new, one thing that you gotta do is put yourself in those uncomfortable situations and challenge yourself and figure out what works, what you can do, and how things work in general so that you get a better sense of how things work in this world that you've thrown yourself into. Because most games, if you're a newer player, they're gonna put you up against newer players. I mean, unless you play Apex Legends, because in that case, you're gonna end up facing against a 3-stack with 400,000 total kills, 50,000 total wins, zero money made off the game, and 2 days of grass touched all year. So without the knowledge and experience to really accurately assess what went wrong, you just gotta try to the best of your ability to think of even the small things that you could have done to put yourself in a better position of finding success. Even if it's just one thing that you think of that you could have done better, that one thing carried across 100 games, that's now 100 different points of reference that you have of things that you don't need to do because it's going to end up leading to a failed outcome. This is also something that I suspect is one of the reasons why watching gameplay from high-level players is such an intriguing and entertaining thing to people. It allows you to get a masterclass in handling certain situations if you know what to pay attention to, and basically gives you a no-risk method of running risk analysis on things in game. And I know I've said before you shouldn't really watch the top players and expect yourself to do what they're gonna do. I'm not necessarily talking about all the arthritis-inducing stuff. I'm more so talking about the little things like taking space, playing good angles, using the terrain against the enemy, things like that. The things that separate normal players from good players, from pros, is a fundamental understanding of what they're doing and how they can use the environment to their advantage. The more you understand the game, coupled with the more time you put into it, multiplies into a heightened form of game sense that allows you to rapidly improve in ways that you might not have even thought were possible. It's like a cost-benefit analysis. Understanding the cost of certain actions makes you more likely to pick alternative routes in the future, which will either be equally costly and a route you need to also avoid, or beneficial and something you can learn to incorporate for similar situations in the future. Game sense is about using your past as a base or reference to improve the present, as well as using the present to analyze how to improve for the future. Now, this isn't exclusive to times when you lose or make mistakes either. The best people at their craft are even able to identify how they could have reached success more efficiently, which further hones them in terms of exploring new ideas and ways of improvement. Now, another thing you may see done often by high-level players is commentary on an opposing player's movements and what the opponent should have done that caused them to fight. This is a high level of thinking in competition. If, during and after a fight, you're analyzing things such as what you did wrong, what you did right, alternative pathways for success, as well as avoiding failure, what your opponent can do to overcome you in the current situation, what they didn't do that led to their failure, and things like that will leave you with more information and experience gained than just winning a fight and going, oh, well, on to the next one, they're dead. You're able to reduce negative outcomes by ruling out certain actions and maneuvers due to mental simulation and realization of inefficiency. Or basically,
trying shit and trying shit, trying shit and trying shit, don't work. Trying shit and trying shit, won't work.
Information and experience forming the basic game sense is like the formula to gain a good game sense, as well as improving on said good game sense. Now, to slightly veer off topic a little bit and to get a better understanding of things, so if you play games, you probably watch games, which means you've probably seen something like those indie horror games that streamers like to play. Hey! This is an Apex Legends channel. Why the fuck are we talking about horror games?
Fucking dude. Talk about the pew pew and the pow pow and the pew.
All right, hold on, wait. Before y'all click off, I promise this is all gonna be on topic. Just stick with me for a second. Now, you may not think game sense plays into those type of indie horror games, but it's kind of one of the easiest genres to see it on display. They're all pretty easy to understand. You, as the protagonist, have a set outcome that you need to accomplish. Now, that can be anything from surviving from a certain period of time, collecting items, getting to a certain area. Basically, the objective is to complete the objective. And in these games, there's usually an enemy or a creature or some type of entity that's there to impede your progress. So there's a reason that I'm bringing up these types of games, even though I really only play and watch FPS games. What we're focusing on is the gameplay loop. That being, you have a set amount of actions and decisions that you can make that can enact either one of two sequences: success, or at the very least progression towards it, or failure at the end. During the reset and reload back to the previous position, after every failure, you're afforded the opportunity to review the decisions you made that led you to the result that you faced. And this is a thing that you're readily afforded in games that have what I like to call an infinite success mechanic, where basically upon failure, you're dropped back into the same situation, the same place that you were before, and you're able to attempt the same situation again in order to finally end up getting success. And this is a feature really only found in co-op and PvE type games. In competitive games, we're never really afforded the opportunity to go back to exactly where we were and attempt the same situation over and over again. But at the same time, you don't want to let that get you to a position where you're not accurately gauging your fights and engagements because you think, oh, if things go bad, I can just restart and reset at the end. Because in all honesty, if you just keep going into the same situations over and over again, never having learned anything from what happened before, you're just going to look and feel like the Wile E. Coyote being ran into a fake wall by the Roadrunner over and over and over and over again. Even if you're playing a game that has an infinite success mechanic, which kinda enables no risk deaths, you always want to combat failure by figuring out what you could have did better in the situation. It all boils down to being cognizant of things like, should I not have tried to revive there? Should I not have gone through that door? Maybe I need to wait a little bit longer before I make that decision. Should I just play a different fucking game? This is a luxury not really afforded to you in a battle royale, but this time of analyzation and deducing what to rule out for the next engagement is game sense. Competitive games, and especially FPSs, challenge the player in ways where the gauntlet is thrown at them and they're left to figure it out and fend for themselves. You're a dull knife who has to go sharpen himself. I don't know why, but that sounds crazy to say out loud. And I don't mean this to come at or attack single player gamers either. There's nothing wrong with enjoying the peace and bliss of a relaxing saunter through a beautiful game world filled with lush lands and engaging creatures. But for those of us who want to get our hands dirty and fight real people in the test of items, skills, and shooting, we don't have any fancy shit like save screens and checkpoints. Either way, the irony of all this is, no matter what game you're playing, the objective is to not die. But the more deaths you have, the less likely it makes you to actually die. What is this? Game senseception? Is that a word? Alright, so if you stuck around past that segment, you're probably watching this and like, yeah, but like, bro, what the hell does any of this have to do with Apex? I promise you we're gonna get to that at the end. But first, let's talk about how you can use game sense and improve your game sense against real players, no matter the genre of game you're playing. This is also something that you can find a lot of examples of in speedrunning. Back in my Elden Ring days and watching speedruns, I know, I watch a lot of random shit. It was always evident to me that all of that ability came from learning and knowing how to use and exploit the game you're playing to its greatest potential, and use what's in the game to reach your goal under your conditions, faster, with more health, no damage taken, etc, etc. All of these are a lot easier in a single player game or a game with similar lobby replayability, i.e. you can host the game lobby with the exact same or almost exactly similar conditions, like GTA Online or Payday. You can redo a heist over and over again, but the AI have a set manner of ways that they can move and attack you, so game sense in this regard is easier. You can pretty much always predict what they're gonna do and how to avoid putting yourself in a position that'll lead to failure. When playing in competitive games against real players, this isn't the case at all. So your game sense here plays a lot more of a factor in determining how to approach situations. Gone are the days of this AI always runs into here like this, I just gotta wait for them and take advantage and shoot and blah blah. Because even though the players you're fighting might seem like AI, real people are exponentially more unpredictable. I liken it to how some people can find themselves being with life. You wake up, go to work, or do whatever activity is going to consume most of your day, eat, shower, sleep, and repeat the next day. There's no overarching plot or goal or mission to be progressed or achieved in the end. You're living episodic, and there's nothing being learned or carried over. That's how some of y'all approach fighting or competing in games when you yourself into fights over and over again and wonder why they never get better, and why you don't either. If you're not constantly taking what didn't work, or at least what didn't work in a certain situation, and using it as a point of reference for future situations, you're forever going to find yourself in the same situations, getting ran down on and wondering what happened.
What happened?
Game sense also helps game sense, aka iron sharpens iron. It goes back to the point I mentioned earlier. Fighting AI doesn't help you as much as there's only certain moves they can make and things they can push to its limits in the game. Bro, I was stuck on my own fucking... When you face off against better and better players, hell, sometimes even players that are a lot worse than you, you open yourself up to new occurrences and new situations that can not only help you figure out what not to do, but also what to do as well. This is why players of games that have a great grasp of the mechanics and are able to be seen as a top player are so heavily watched. It's why I even still watch some of the top movement and solo players in Apex, but the game is starting, oh, can y'all please add some content? It's starting to get so boring to watch. Seeing how someone better than you at something approaches it allows you to get new information that can help you make better decisions when finding yourself in that situation again. And let's be real, no matter how much nuance and variance there is on a micro level in these situations, from a macro standpoint, you can usually fit them into certain categories: attack, protect, defense, reset, retreat, punish slash bait, etc., etc. And having sets of rules and game plans you enact in certain situations are things that are developed from a healthy sense of game sense. Oh god, y'all get the damn point. I've played many different games of many different genres, and whether I was running down lobbies in Call of Duty, 1vxing people 1.5 my level in Cyrodiil and ESO, being a RuneScape degen, having a firm grasp of how mechanics work in the system known as the game I'm playing has always been an integral part to me of not only reaching success, but continuously improving in order to make success more feasible as I naturally start to come across and fight better players with more of a grasp of game sense of their own. Alright, my fault. I know I've been rambling, talking a lot, so if you're still here, thank you. I appreciate it. And now we're finally going to get to how this pertains to Apex, because I know most of y'all are here for Apex and want to learn about Apex, so let's talk about Apex. Now, I'm going to be real with y'all. I've only played Apex since Season 13. My fault if I season fished y'all, but I haven't been on the game for long. I probably played for a year at this point. But at the same time, the things that I've talked about in this video are some of the things that I've used to rapidly improve to the point that I'm at now. And I say a lot. There's a lot going on in Apex. There's a lot to understand. And if you don't really get the gist of most of it, you're going to lose a lot more fights than you win. When it comes to game sense in Apex, it encompasses a lot more than just fighting. Like for instance, knowing when to fight and when to put your gun away, back up, and reset. This is a part of game sense that some people could definitely get more of a grasp on. And I've talked about this in another recent video, but for the most part, if you're in a fight for too long and nothing is happening where you can move forward, you're not gaining any type of advantage or any type of ground, it's probably best to just pack it up and move, rotate somewhere else. Because the only thing you're going to do, continuing to pop off shots at each other in that situation, is bring another team in and one of you is going to get third partied. And you may end up being the team that gets third party. And if you get pinched, well, you're going to die, probably. And you don't want to end up in that situation. So if you've been sitting in the spot for a long time, just popping your gun, and they've been on the other side popping that gum, you might want to run. Just give it up. Now, another example of game sense that I talked about earlier is knowing the terrain and knowing the maps and the level design. Now, an example of this is one of the recent events in Apex when they brought back a lot of the older maps. Like I said earlier, I've only played since Season 13, so I never played on those maps when they were originally out. This affected my game sense a lot because I was less aware of ongoings and how to approach situations due to my lack of map knowledge for some of those areas. Some of the POIs were changed, some of the POIs I had never played before in my life, so it got pretty confusing. Through time and playing through those areas and learning doorways and paths to get in and out and where the zip lines are, where the loot pills are, things like that, I got a lot better at playing them, and I was even able to get some really fire games in the end. Knowing the terrain, especially in a game like Apex Legends, is one of the most important things that you can do that'll help you get a leg up on your enemies. Buildings with balconies are one of the main examples of this in Apex. A lot of them have cable boxes and sewer pipes and all of this other stuff outside that you can use to climb up and get in the building without having to use a doorway. If someone is paying attention to a door angle and expecting you to come through that way, you can very easily go through the top of the building, come behind them, and get the drop on them. But it can even be something as simple as knowing the distance between two doorways in order for you to heal at one and slide out of the other one and heal there too. Or knowing where a window is after you get off a zip line so that you can jump out of it and avoid being shot. At the end of the day, knowing the map, knowing the areas, knowing what's going on in those areas and how you can move and get to different positions is always going to afford you a better outcome than just running around confused like you're in a foreign country like we talked about earlier. And this is one of those things where, again, experience reigns supreme. Fighting in those areas and learning how those areas work is the only way you're going to gain this game sense. So hot dropping might not necessarily always be the worst option. Some of y'all don't know how to fight in some of these areas in the map because the only thing you've ever done is loot there, because when you play the game, most of the time you run around looting. You need to do more shooting. Fight in damn near every POI in the game so that you're able to learn all the intricacies and ins and outs of the locations. I've played the game long enough and played these POIs long enough that aside from those event maps, I can fight in pretty much any POI and hold my own because I know where the doors are, where the zip lines are, what I can climb up, how I can get into a building without going through a door, things like that. Now that has to do a lot with fighting. But when you're not fighting, either way, you still need to be on the lookout and the ear out for enemies and movement going on around you. You should always be paying attention to either you getting potentially ran up on by a team or a team you can take advantage of that's none the wiser. One thing you'll see a lot of players do on rotation is constantly slide with their gun out, looking down sights out in the distance. Well, this game has a lot of open areas, so a lot of the time, even when you're rotating and having to pass through from POI to POI, you have to be in some open area for just a split second, even if you're moving from cover to cover, and that can give away your position. But if that's the case, a lot of teams aren't really going to start shooting at you from 800 meters away because they know they aren't going to hit those shots. So they're going to get a lot closer, and you being all lackadaisical and running tunnel vision to your objective is only going to end up getting you in a terrible situation when they run down on you. So make sure you pay attention on your rotations and your movements. Don't get caught out in the open for too long or too often. Know what you need from these POIs and get it quickly. It doesn't really make too much sense to spend forever looting a POI. I mean, unless it's ranked, then search every nook and cranny. But if it's pubs, every team is going to be dead by the time you find the gun you want, bro. Just go shoot somebody. One of them has the gun, pick it up off their death box. Please, please, please shoot your gun. Learn how to tell what you're fighting against and what to expect. i.e., don't feel safe on height fighting horizons or ashes. Don't feel safe in a building fighting a fuse or a Maggie, etc., etc. In a game like Apex, abilities can change a fight just as much as individual player skill or team synergy can. And even if you don't play too many of the characters, through time, learning the different ways the characters can be played against you and used against you is one of those ways of improving your game sense and learning what situations to keep yourself out of. Another thing that for some reason I feel like people don't really understand that you can do in this game: pay attention to the top right and the bottom left of your screen. If your teammates are low health, if you feel confident to push and finish off a low health enemy, then that's a risk to decide if you want to take. But if you notice your teammates are low health and they don't push with you, you pinging over and over and over again trying to get them to jump into a bad situation just because you did, it doesn't make sense. Like, get this, right? Like all right, let's think about this situation. If you got a little bit of health and you push somebody that got a little bit of health and he's with his teammates and they got a little bit more health than you, and now you got no health and we got a little bit of health, do you really think we gonna run in there and make them all have no health? Like, I don't know why people ping over and over again when they get killed by an entire team. I don't want to do the same thing you just did, bro. And you shouldn't want to do that no more either. So this is where you build your game sense and you put yourself in a better position to not do that over and over again. If you're an Octane, a Wraith, a Horizon, pushing and putting yourself in bad positions because you got escape ability within escape ability is not necessarily going to help you improve your game sense, especially because you're probably not going to take any accountability in the end. You're going to be mad that your teammates weren't right behind you missing all their shots too, and that's what you don't do. I know I said you got to put yourself in these situations and probably die in these fights to learn what not to do, but you got to have a little common sense. Some things you should just know not to do, and running into a room with an entire team by yourself, they're gonna put you on black, bro, and I'm not gonna help you. Another kind of underrated tactic that I don't really see too many people talk about: if you're watching a fight, trying to get angles on a fight to third party and stuff like that, you can see when your enemies knock people in the top right. Somehow people don't really notice, but you can pay attention to that, and your teammates' names have colors, so they're easier to see in the kill feed. If your teammate knocks someone, that's usually a good time for you to push forward. Now, I know with my last video, I talked about how that's not always the best thing to do, but at the same time, if you can do it safely and move from cover to cover and, you know, get good positioning like I've talked about in other videos, it's going to be beneficial and help you close that fight just a little bit faster. Also, another little underrated trick: use the death recap to get a beam on enemy fights happening close to you. Get familiar with the sounds of guns in this game. Oftentimes I figured out the perfect moment to third party a fight just paying attention to the gun sounds correlating with starting to stopping right before someone dies to that gun on the kill feed. I.e., if I hear someone shooting a flatline and I see someone die to a flatline right then in the kill feed, I know one of those teams just knocked someone. Now I'm getting in position to see what's going on because this might be the time for me to get in there and start doing some damage in this fight too. At the end of the day, Apex is a battle royale, which means that it encompasses a lot more mechanics than you will find in your typical run around and shoot 'em up game. Just the sheer aspect of things like RNG, POIs, rotations in the ring, zones, things like that just make it a lot more of a dynamic game than you would expect from something like traditional Call of Duty or Battlefield or something like that. And even beyond just the team fighting and looting and shooting, there's a lot more things that encompass this game, like strategy and awareness and just having a general sense of direction of what's going on around you and knowing what you actually want to do when you make your decisions. Because a lot of times I see people get into situations where they get into a fight, they get into a good position to push forward, they push forward, and then they're stuck. They didn't have a plan for what happens when they actually do push forward and wipe that team. And so now they're just sitting there confused and they're just prey for anybody walking up, getting ready to third party, licking their lips. So in a nutshell, game sense boils down to actually knowing what the game is and what's going on around you past just the fight that you're in. Game sense has a lot to do with efficiency. You're trying to figure out the shortest, safest path for you to get to your objective without it costing you much in the end. This is true of any video game with any type of objective mechanic, which is pretty much any video game. So like I said earlier, just because this channel and a big part of this YouTube was Apex Legends focused, this does not just apply to Apex Legends. Pretty much any type of game out there where there's something that you have to do in the end, which like I said is every game, you can apply these concepts to. Because at the end of the day, game sense is really just acquiring a better understanding and a better strategy when it comes to approaching the situations that you may find yourself approaching in game. And whether you're fighting a bunch of AI or fighting real people that might feel like you're still fighting AI, either way, you just need to get a better sense of the game and what's going on around you, because confusion is only going to lead to the lobby. I also want to throw in here, I did get a little streaming desk join thing set. Y'all know what I mean. Ignore all the damn cables and wires. I'll probably spend some time to get that situated at some point. But now I'm on stream and I actually have a mic and y'all can hear in-game chat and y'all can hear the music I listen to and whatnot. So yeah, these videos and streams and stuff like that should definitely be going up from here. And if you stuck around or supported this far, thus far, so far, whatever, I do highly appreciate y'all. I definitely didn't expect for this to end up happening in any way, shape, or form, at least anytime soon. I figured I was going to be making YouTube videos and sending them into the void probably until late next year, and then finally get some type of recognition or something. But then again, Apex might not even survive until late last year, so late next year. Y'all get what I'm saying. So we'll see how that goes. And if you find me entertaining or stupid or educational or something, if anything piques your interest that makes you want to follow along more, you could definitely subscribe here on YouTube. You could check me out on Twitch. You could check me out on Twitter, where I frequently get into rages about the dumb shit my teammates do. And yeah, I'm usually better at doing these outros, but I'm kind of drawing a blank here. So yeah, watch this video.